The room was full of laughter and chatter as people gathered for the small school talent show. Excited voices mixed with nervous whispers, creating a hum of energy that filled every corner. The girl stood near the back, her hands clutched together, feeling the familiar flutter of nerves in her stomach. She had watched events like this before, always wishing she could join but never having the courage. Today, though, she felt something different. Today, she wanted to try. She wanted to show, at least to herself, that she could do something she had dreamed about for a long time. The piano sat in the corner of the stage, glossy and black, reflecting the bright lights from above. It was beautiful and intimidating at the same time. Her eyes traced the smooth keys, each one holding a promise of sound, of melody, of something magical. She had never played in front of anyone before, only at home, practicing quietly where no one could hear. Her fingers itched to touch the keys, but a small voice inside whispered, "What if they laugh? What if I fail?" The doubts were strong, but the desire to play was stronger. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward. As soon as she approached the piano, a few of the other students noticed. Their laughter was immediate, sharp, and unkind. "Look at her," one of them said, a smirk on their face. "Does she really think she can play?" Others joined in, some whispering, some giggling, creating a wave of doubt around her. The girl's heart raced. Her hands trembled slightly, but she did not step back. She knew that if she let fear win now, she would regret it forever. So she focused on the keys, on the shiny black and white path in front of her, and ignored the laughter. Sitting down on the piano bench, she placed her hands carefully on the keys. They felt cold under her fingers, solid and real. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, taking another deep breath, trying to calm the storm of nerves inside her. She remembered the countless hours she had spent at home, pressing the keys, learning little melodies, making mistakes, and trying again. Each failure had been a lesson, each success a small joy. She could do this. She had to try. Her fingers moved slowly at first, finding the right notes. The sound was soft, hesitant, unsure. A few people in the audience laughed louder, thinking it was a joke, thinking she could not possibly produce anything meaningful. But she did not stop. She reminded herself that this was her moment, not theirs. Each note she played, however small, was a victory over fear. Each small melody that emerged from the piano was a quiet whisper of her determination. The laughter, while sharp, began to fade into the background as she focused more and more on the music. The girl began to find a rhythm, a simple pattern that felt comfortable. It was not perfect, far from it, but it was hers. The notes stumbled and faltered sometimes, but they always moved forward. She could feel the music in her chest, in her fingertips, in her mind. It was as if the piano and she had become partners, speaking a language only they understood. She could feel her confidence growing with each passing second, a small but steady flame that refused to be extinguished by the snickers around her. A teacher standing nearby noticed the determination in her eyes. Quietly they nodded, giving her a small, encouraging smile. That tiny gesture made her heart swell with courage. She was not alone in this. Someone saw her effort, and that was enough to push her further. She played a few more notes, each one bolder than the last, slowly building a simple melody that began to float through the room. Some of the laughter started to die down, replaced by curiosity. People began to turn their heads, wondering what she was creating, trying to understand why she continued despite the teasing. Her mind wandered for a moment, remembering the first time she had touched a piano at home. Her fingers had been clumsy, fumbling over the keys. She remembered the frustration of wanting to play a song perfectly and failing repeatedly. But she also remembered the thrill of hearing a small piece come together, the joy of creating something from nothing. That memory gave her strength now, reminding her that every expert had once been a beginner, and she was still learning, still growing, still reaching for something greater. Slowly, a quiet hush began to settle in the room. The laughter had mostly stopped, replaced by a mixture of curiosity and surprise. A few students leaned forward, their eyes widening as they realized she was actually playing something recognizable, something that sounded like a song. The girl did not notice them at first, too absorbed in the music, feeling the rise and fall of the melody beneath her fingers. She felt alive in a way she had never felt before, connected to the music and to herself, discovering a part of who she was. Her hands moved more confidently now, the trembling of the first notes gone. She experimented with different keys, letting her intuition guide her fingers. Each sound was a little story, a little expression of her emotions. She felt proud, not because anyone applauded, but because she had faced her fear and kept going. The audience began to shift, some people whispering in awe, trying to understand the sudden change in the room. What had seemed like a simple, timid attempt was turning into something captivating. Time seemed to stretch and bend as she played, each note blending into the next. She lost track of the laughter, the whispers, the curious eyes. All that mattered was the music and the courage it had taken to reach this point. She was discovering something inside herself. A spark that she had always known was there but had never fully trusted, and with each note she felt it growing, bright and undeniable. As the first part of her performance came to a soft ending, she lifted her hands from the keys. Silence filled the room, heavy and surprising. No one laughed anymore. Some stared, mouths slightly open, unsure of what they had just heard. Others glanced at each other, eyes wide with the sudden realization that the girl who had been laughed at was not only capable but talented in a way they had not expected. She looked up briefly, feeling the weight of their surprise, and allowed herself a small, shy smile. She had done it. She had faced the fear, reached for her dream, and played. In that moment, she knew this was only the beginning. The laughter had not disappeared completely, but it no longer mattered. She had discovered something much more important, her own courage and the joy of creating something with her own hands. She realized that the journey ahead would have more challenges, more doubts, but for now, she had taken the first step, and it was a step that would lead her to places she had only dreamed of. As she stood and walked off the stage, her heart still racing, she felt a strange mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. The piano, once a distant dream, had become a reality she had touched, and it had responded to her with beauty and music. She had faced the laughter, faced the doubt, and had emerged not broken but stronger, more confident. And in that strength, she carried the promise of what was yet to come. A journey filled with music, courage, and the endless possibility of discovery. After the first few hesitant notes, the girl felt a small surge of courage. The piano seemed less intimidating now, as if it were inviting her to explore further. The room had grown quieter, the laughter replaced by curious eyes and attentive ears. She could feel the warmth of expectation in the air, though she focused only on the keys under her fingertips, letting each sound guide her. The notes, though still simple, were beginning to form something meaningful. She closed her eyes for a moment, listening to the melody she was creating, feeling the vibrations through her hands and into her heart. At first, the music stumbled along, clumsy and unsure, but she refused to stop. She remembered the hours spent alone at home, practicing quietly, making mistakes, and starting again. Each small memory of perseverance gave her the strength to continue. The girl experimented with gentle chords, feeling how the sounds blended, learning how her own emotions could shape the melody. She realized that music was more than just pressing keys. It was telling a story, one that could speak without words, and she had a story to tell. Some of the students in the audience shifted uncomfortably. They had laughed at her before, but now something was changing. A few whispers passed through the crowd, soft but unmistakable. "She's actually good," one student murmured. Another nodded slightly, leaning forward to catch every note. The girl did not notice them. She was absorbed in the music, moving from simple patterns to slightly more complex sequences. Her fingers, once unsure, began to glide more naturally, responding to the rhythm she felt inside. Each note carried a part of her fear, her determination, and her growing confidence. Her thoughts drifted to the people who had doubted her, the mocking faces, and the whispers of ridicule. For a moment she felt a flash of anger and sadness, but she transformed it into focus. Instead of letting it hold her back, she allowed it to fuel her resolve. She reminded herself that this was her moment, her chance to shine, and she would not let the negativity define her. Each note became stronger, clearer, more deliberate. She could feel the audience's attention shifting, the atmosphere changing from doubt to fascination. A teacher watching from the side stepped closer, quietly encouraging her with a nod and a warm smile. It was a small gesture, but it meant everything to her. She was not alone. Someone believed in her, even if she did not yet believe fully in herself. That small encouragement helped her take risks, trying notes she had only practiced in private, melodies she had been too nervous to play in front of anyone. The piano began to feel like an extension of herself, a voice that could speak her emotions without fear or judgment. Her hands moved more confidently now, each chord flowing into the next, creating a gentle wave of music that filled the room. The initial awkwardness was gone, replaced by a rhythm that felt natural. She began to play a familiar tune she had practiced often at home, a melody that brought her comfort and joy. The audience leaned in, some with wide eyes as they realized the girl who had been laughed at moments before was creating something beautiful. Their whispers of curiosity turned into murmurs of amazement. Even the students who had mocked her were silent now, captivated by the unfolding music. The girl lost track of time as she continued to play. Her fingers danced across the keys, occasionally hesitating but always moving forward. She was learning in real time, discovering how to express herself fully through the instrument. Every note she played reflected her courage, her dreams, and her growing self-assurance. She had entered a space where fear no longer controlled her, replaced instead by the pure joy of creation. She felt a sense of freedom, an unexpected exhilaration, as if the piano had opened a door to a world she had only glimpsed in her imagination. Some parents in the audience exchanged glances, impressed and surprised. They had not expected such skill or confidence from someone who had appeared so shy and timid. A few leaned closer, whispering encouragement to each other about the girl's talent and determination. The atmosphere had shifted completely. Laughter was gone, replaced by a quiet, respectful attention. The girl, unaware of this transformation, focused solely on her playing, letting the melody guide her through her emotions. As she experimented with slightly faster notes, the melody took on a new energy. It was not perfect. There were small mistakes, minor hesitations, but they did not detract from the beauty of the music. In fact, each imperfection made it more human, more real. She realized that music, like life, was not about perfection, but about expression, about courage, and about connection. The notes she played now carried her personality, her heart, and her story. Each sound was a statement. She was capable, she was brave, and she had something to share with the world. The girl's confidence grew further when she noticed a few students quietly nodding in appreciation, their faces showing genuine admiration. One or two even smiled, unable to hide their astonishment. She felt a subtle sense of pride, not from the praise itself, but from knowing she was doing what she had once thought impossible. The piano, which had seemed like a towering challenge, was now a partner, responding to her courage and determination with every note. She realized that the laughter from before had lost its power. It could no longer define her experience. Her music began to flow more smoothly, the melodies intertwining with her emotions, creating a story without words. She remembered her earliest days of practice at home, when the piano had seemed impossible to master, and compared it to now. The contrast was enormous. She had transformed fear into focus, hesitation into action, and doubt into determination. Each chord she played was a testament to her perseverance and belief in herself. She felt a deep sense of satisfaction and joy that she had never experienced before. A few more adults in the room quietly exchanged impressed glances, recognizing that this young girl had a natural gift that went beyond mere practice. Her courage and willingness to step forward despite ridicule had allowed her talent to shine. The room, once filled with laughter and mockery, now resonated with attention and anticipation. People waited to see what she would do next, silently rooting for her, their curiosity and respect growing with each passing note. The girl's mind wandered briefly to the future, imagining herself performing in bigger settings, sharing her music with more people. She smiled inwardly at the thought, feeling a sense of purpose and direction she had never felt before. The piano had given her more than sound. It had given her confidence, a glimpse of her potential, and a realization that she could achieve things she had never thought possible. Each note played was not just music, but a statement of hope, courage, and determination. As she concluded this part of her playing, she felt a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. Her hands were slightly sore from the effort, but her heart was light and full of accomplishment. The audience, now fully attentive, offered small, spontaneous applause, a gentle acknowledgement of the courage and talent they had just witnessed. Though not everyone was clapping, the shift in energy was undeniable. The girl had captured their attention, transformed their skepticism into curiosity, and created a connection through her music. She lifted her hands from the keys, taking a deep breath and letting the silence settle over the room. The experience had been transformative, a journey from fear and doubt to expression and discovery. She realized that she had not just played music. She had communicated a part of herself, shared her determination, and taken a step toward becoming the person she wanted to be. She felt a new sense of empowerment, a belief that she could face challenges and continue to grow. As she walked away from the piano, she glanced at the audience and noticed subtle signs of respect and admiration. The students who had laughed earlier looked away, unable to hide their surprise. The teacher gave her another encouraging nod, reinforcing the feeling that she was on the right path. The girl understood that this was just the beginning, a first step in a long journey of learning, growing, and sharing her music. And with that thought, she carried a newfound confidence, ready to continue exploring her talent and daring to dream bigger than ever before. The girl returned home that evening with her heart still racing from the experience at the school event. She could not stop thinking about the piano, the notes she had played, and the looks of surprise on the faces of those who had mocked her. For the first time, she felt a sense of pride that was entirely hers, a feeling that she had accomplished something remarkable despite her fears. The memory of the applause, even if quiet and small, stayed with her, warming her from the inside. She sat at her own small piano in her room, wanting to recreate the feelings of the day and push herself further. Her fingers itched to explore, to learn, and to express more. She began by repeating the melody she had played earlier, letting her fingers move with increasing confidence. The room was quiet, her parents busy with their own work, leaving her alone with the piano and her thoughts. She played the notes slowly, carefully, but soon allowed herself to speed up, experimenting with rhythm and pace. Every time she stumbled, she reminded herself that mistakes were part of learning. Each minor error became a lesson, a chance to adjust, to improve. She began to feel a rhythm emerging that felt entirely her own, a melody that reflected her personality and emotions. As the days passed, she dedicated herself to practice more seriously than ever before. Each afternoon, after finishing her schoolwork, she would sit by the piano for hours. Sometimes she practiced quietly, experimenting with new melodies, while other times she played with passion, letting her emotions flow freely. She discovered that music could express feelings she had trouble putting into words, her excitement, her fears, her hopes, and her dreams. The more she played, the more she realized that her talent was not just about hitting the right notes, but about feeling the music and letting it come alive. Back at school, the memory of her performance began to spread. A few students who had mocked her initially now spoke about her talent in whispers of admiration. Some even approached her cautiously, curious to see the girl who had transformed their laughter into astonishment. She noticed the change, but she did not let it distract her from her practice. Instead, it motivated her. She wanted to improve, not for recognition, but to fulfill her own potential and to see how far she could go. Each note she played became more intentional, more expressive, more confident. Her teacher noticed her dedication and approached her one afternoon. "You have something special," the teacher said gently. "I can see how hard you are working, and your music reflects that. Have you ever considered performing for a larger audience?" The girl hesitated, fear flickering in her eyes, but the encouragement in the teacher's voice gave her courage. She nodded slowly, realizing that she wanted to share her music even if it meant facing nerves and uncertainty once again. The thought of performing for a bigger audience made her both excited and anxious, but she understood that growth required taking risks. The girl decided to prepare for a small recital at school, an event that brought students, parents, and teachers together. She chose a piece that she loved, one she had practiced countless times, and began refining it. She focused on every detail, the rhythm, the tempo, the emotion behind each note. She imagined herself on the stage, not as someone to be laughed at, but as a musician telling her story through the piano. Every day of practice strengthened her confidence and skill, transforming her nervousness into anticipation. When the day of the recital arrived, she felt a familiar flutter of nerves in her stomach. The room was larger than before, filled with people she did not know. But she reminded herself of her first performance, the one where she had faced laughter and doubt and still played. That memory gave her strength. She walked toward the piano with her head held high, her fingers poised above the keys, ready to share her music once again. This time she felt a sense of calm determination rather than fear. As she began to play, the melody filled the room, clear and expressive. The audience listened intently, their previous skepticism replaced by curiosity and appreciation. She played with emotion, letting the music convey her feelings and story. Each note carried a piece of her courage. Each chord expressed her dedication, and each melody spoke of her growth. She could feel the connection forming between herself and the audience, a silent understanding that transcended words. The piano was no longer just an instrument. It was a bridge connecting hearts and emotions. Midway through her performance, she noticed the students who had laughed before sitting quietly, some with wide eyes, others whispering to one another in admiration. The music had captured their attention, and they could no longer dismiss her talent. Even the teachers and parents watching were visibly moved, recognizing not only her skill but also her courage and determination. The girl realized that she had transformed not just her own confidence, but also the perceptions of those around her. She was beginning to understand the power of persistence and passion. Her performance continued with growing intensity, each note becoming more fluid, more confident. She experimented with subtle variations, adding her personal touch to the melody she had once played nervously in the corner of the school hall. She allowed herself to feel the music fully, letting it guide her fingers and her emotions. The audience responded unconsciously, leaning forward, listening more closely, captivated by the story unfolding through her playing. The room seemed to fade away, leaving only her and the piano, and the music that carried both her vulnerability and her strength. After finishing the piece, she held her hands above the keys for a moment, letting the final note linger in the air. Silence followed, heavy with surprise and admiration. Then a wave of applause filled the room, genuine and enthusiastic. The girl's heart swelled with emotion, a mix of relief, pride, and joy. She realized that her journey had reached a turning point. She had faced fear, ridicule, and doubt, and emerged not only unbroken but triumphant. The applause was not the most important part. What mattered most was the knowledge that she had dared to try and had expressed herself fully through her music. As she stepped away from the piano, people came forward to congratulate her. Some of the students who had mocked her before offered smiles and kind words, their previous judgment replaced with respect. A few parents and teachers praised her dedication and talent, highlighting the courage it took to perform. The girl received these compliments with humility, understanding that her journey was ongoing and that each performance, each practice session, was a step toward becoming the musician she aspired to be. That evening, she returned home, her heart light and her mind full of ideas for new melodies and compositions. She understood that her talent was not fixed. It could grow, evolve, and deepen with time and effort. The experience had taught her that courage and perseverance were as important as skill, and that facing challenges head-on could lead to unexpected rewards. She sat at her piano once more, experimenting with new chords, playing with freedom and exploring the endless possibilities that music offered. Each note was a reminder of her growth, her determination, and the power of believing in herself despite doubt or ridicule. Over the following weeks, her confidence continued to build. She practiced daily, discovering new techniques, experimenting with rhythm and expression, and developing her own style. She became more aware of the emotional impact her music could have, learning to communicate feelings through melody and harmony. Her dedication inspired others around her, including her classmates, who began to see her not just as a talented musician, but as an example of courage, persistence, and passion. The girl realized that her journey was no longer about proving herself to others. It was about discovering the depth of her own potential and the joy of expressing it. Her teacher encouraged her to participate in more school events and small competitions, helping her gain experience and exposure. Each performance was a new challenge, a chance to refine her skills and grow as a musician. The girl approached each opportunity with excitement and determination, remembering the first time she had faced ridicule and overcome it. She knew that fear and doubt were natural, but they no longer controlled her. Music had become both her voice and her strength, a source of confidence that could carry her through any challenge. Through this journey, she learned an important lesson. Talent alone was not enough. Courage, dedication, and a willingness to face fear were equally essential. The piano had become a teacher in its own right, guiding her through mistakes, successes, and discoveries. She understood that each note, each melody, was a reflection of herself, a testament to her perseverance and her ability to grow. And as she continued to play, she felt a sense of fulfillment and purpose that went far beyond recognition or applause. As she prepared for future performances, the girl began to dream bigger. She imagined herself sharing her music with larger audiences, exploring new compositions and continuing to improve her skills. She realized that the journey was ongoing, that each performance, each practice session was a step toward becoming the musician she aspired to be. And in that realization, she felt a deep sense of satisfaction and excitement, knowing that the path ahead was full of possibility, growth, and endless musical discovery. The weeks following her first public performance were filled with a mix of excitement and hard work. The girl spent every afternoon at the piano, her fingers moving over the keys with increasing confidence. She discovered that the more she played, the more natural it became, as if the music were flowing through her rather than being created by her. Each practice session was a chance to explore new melodies, try different rhythms, and push the boundaries of what she could accomplish. She began to feel a deep connection to the piano, understanding that it was more than just an instrument. It was a voice that could express her innermost thoughts and emotions. Back at school, the atmosphere around her had changed. The students who had once mocked her now watched with curiosity and respect. Some asked questions about her practice, eager to understand how she had developed her skill. Others quietly admired her dedication, inspired by her courage and perseverance. Even the teachers noticed a difference, recognizing her growth and encouraging her to participate in more school events and performances. The girl, while aware of the attention, remained focused on her music, understanding that her journey was about personal growth and not about pleasing others. One day, her teacher approached her with an opportunity to perform at a larger school event, one that included parents, teachers, and students from other classes. The girl felt a surge of excitement, mixed with a familiar flutter of nerves. She had faced fear before and had overcome it, but the thought of a larger audience brought a new level of challenge. Yet she knew that this was the next step in her journey. She accepted the opportunity, determined to prepare as best as she could. The thought of sharing her music with more people gave her both motivation and a sense of responsibility. She began a new routine, balancing her schoolwork with extended practice sessions. She focused on refining her technique, learning to control her timing, volume, and expression. She experimented with different pieces, each presenting a unique challenge, pushing her to adapt and improve. With each practice session, she felt her confidence grow. She could see the progress in her fingers, in her posture, and in the way the music flowed from her. The piano became a friend, a partner, and a source of comfort in moments of doubt or anxiety. As the day of the school-wide performance approached, the girl faced moments of self-doubt. She wondered if she would remember all the notes, if her fingers would move as smoothly as they did in practice, and if the audience would accept her. But she reminded herself of the first time she had played publicly, how she had faced laughter and emerged stronger. She focused on her preparation, trusting the hours of practice and the connection she had built with the piano. She knew that the only way to succeed was to face her fears head-on, just as she had before. The event day arrived and the room buzzed with excitement. Parents, students, and teachers filled the hall, creating an atmosphere of anticipation. The girl felt a familiar nervous energy in her chest, but she took deep breaths, grounding herself. She remembered her journey, the hours of practice, the moments of doubt, and the small victories along the way. She walked to the stage with purpose, her fingers ready to create the music she had been perfecting for weeks. The piano awaited her, its glossy keys reflecting the bright lights, inviting her to play. As she began, the first notes were steady and deliberate. The melody filled the room, soft and expressive, drawing the audience into her world. She played with emotion, letting the music convey her feelings and story. Each note carried her determination, her courage, and her growth. The audience listened intently, captivated by the beauty of the performance. The students who had once laughed now watched in awe, unable to hide their admiration. The teachers and parents were impressed, recognizing the skill and dedication it took to perform so confidently. The girl's fingers moved effortlessly over the keys, executing complex passages she had only recently mastered. She allowed herself to experiment with dynamics, shifting from soft, delicate notes to bold, powerful chords. The music resonated through the room, creating a connection between herself and the audience. She felt a sense of freedom, a joy that came from expressing herself fully and sharing her passion. The applause that followed each section of her performance was encouraging, reinforcing her confidence and inspiring her to continue with even more energy and focus. Midway through her performance, she played a piece she had composed herself, a melody that reflected her journey, her emotions, and her personal growth. The audience was captivated, listening closely as the music unfolded. Each note told a story, conveying feelings that words could not express. The girl felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that she was able to communicate through her music and touch the hearts of those listening. The piano had become her voice, her way of sharing her experiences and emotions with the world. As she reached the final section of her performance, she felt a surge of confidence and joy. The music flowed naturally, effortlessly, as if she and the piano were one. The audience was silent, fully absorbed in the beauty and emotion of her playing. When the last note faded, the room erupted in applause, loud and enthusiastic. The girl's heart swelled with pride and happiness. She had faced her fears, worked tirelessly, and shared her music with a large audience. The applause was not just recognition of her talent, but also of her courage, perseverance, and determination. After stepping off the stage, the girl received congratulations from teachers, students, and parents alike. Some of the students who had mocked her before approached, their expressions now filled with admiration and respect. They asked questions about her practice, her favorite pieces, and how she had developed her skills. The girl answered with humility, understanding that her journey was ongoing and that there was always more to learn. She realized that her success was not just about talent, but about dedication, courage, and the willingness to face challenges. In the days that followed, the girl continued to practice and explore new musical pieces. She felt a sense of excitement and purpose, knowing that each performance, each practice session was a step toward becoming the musician she aspired to be. She learned to embrace challenges, understanding that growth came from pushing beyond comfort zones and confronting fears. The piano had become more than an instrument. It was a partner, a teacher, and a source of inspiration. Through it, she discovered the power of perseverance, self-expression, and the joy of sharing her talents with others. Her experiences inspired those around her. Other students began to explore their own interests and talents, encouraged by the girl's courage and dedication. Teachers recognized the importance of nurturing each student's potential and providing opportunities for growth. The girl understood that her journey was part of a larger story of learning, discovery, and inspiration. She felt proud not only of her accomplishments but also of the positive impact she could have on others. The girl began to dream even bigger. She imagined performing at larger venues, composing original pieces, and sharing her music with a wider audience. She understood that the path ahead would have challenges, but she was ready to face them. Each practice session, each performance, and each moment of doubt or triumph was a step forward. She embraced the journey, knowing that growth, courage, and passion would guide her toward her dreams. The piano, once a source of fear and uncertainty, had become a symbol of her determination and a tool for her self-expression. Through music, she had found her voice and the confidence to pursue her dreams. The anticipation in the hall was almost tangible as the day of the big school concert arrived. The girl felt a mixture of excitement and nerves coursing through her veins. She had performed before, but this was different. The audience was larger, the stakes higher, and the opportunity to truly share her music more significant. Yet beneath the fluttering nerves was a deep sense of confidence, built through months of practice, perseverance, and small triumphs. She knew that she had prepared well, and she trusted her fingers, her mind, and her heart to guide her through the performance. Backstage, she could hear the murmur of the audience, the rustling of programs, and the occasional laughter and applause for other performers. She closed her eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath, recalling her journey. She remembered the first time she had touched a piano in public, the laughter and mocking that had once made her feel small and uncertain. She remembered the quiet practice sessions at home, the small victories, and the growth she had achieved through dedication. She reminded herself that she was no longer that timid girl. She had grown, and this performance was a celebration of that growth. When her turn came, she walked confidently onto the stage. The piano gleamed under the bright lights, inviting her to play. She sat down, placing her fingers gently on the keys. The audience fell silent, their attention now fully on her. She took a deep breath, feeling a calm determination wash over her. She remembered the advice of her teacher, the encouragement of friends, and the countless hours she had devoted to practicing. The first note rang out clearly, and she felt a surge of connection with the music, as if the piano were an extension of herself. As she played, The melody unfolded beautifully, capturing both her skill and her emotion. She allowed herself to feel the music fully, letting it guide her fingers and her expression. Each note carried a piece of her journey, the fear, the determination, the joy, and the pride of overcoming obstacles. The audience listened in awe, some leaning forward, others with eyes closed, absorbed in the flow of the music. The girl realized that this was more than a performance. It was a communication, a way to touch hearts without words, to convey feelings that could not be spoken. Halfway through her piece, she played a melody she had composed herself, inspired by her journey of growth and courage. The notes were expressive, delicate, and powerful all at once. The audience was captivated, and the energy in the hall shifted. What had begun as a simple school concert became a shared experience of emotion and artistry. Some students who had once mocked her now watched silently, their expressions a mix of admiration and awe. Parents and teachers nodded in appreciation, recognizing not just her talent but the courage it took to perform so boldly. As she continued, she experimented with dynamics, softening some notes while letting others ring out powerfully. The music ebbed and flowed, mirroring the highs and lows of her journey. She felt completely immersed, aware only of the piano and the story she was telling through it. Every mistake that had once seemed so significant now felt like a small step, a part of the learning process that had brought her to this moment. Her confidence grew with each measure, her fingers moving with precision and emotion, creating a performance that was both technically impressive and deeply heartfelt. The climax of her piece approached, and she allowed herself to pour all her emotion into the music. The notes soared, capturing the intensity of her experiences, the challenges she had faced, the determination she had nurtured, and the triumphs she had achieved. The audience was completely absorbed, a hush falling over the hall as they were carried along by the beauty and power of her music. She could feel their connection, their shared emotion, and it inspired her to play with even greater expression, knowing that her music was making an impact. Finally, the last note lingered in the air, soft and resonant. She lifted her hands from the keys, holding them in the quiet afterglow of the music. Silence filled the room for a brief, suspended moment, and then a wave of applause erupted, loud and enthusiastic. The girl felt a surge of pride and joy mixed with relief and gratitude. She had faced her fears, practiced tirelessly, and shared her music with a larger audience than ever before. The applause was not just for her talent, but for her courage, her dedication, and the authenticity of her performance. As she stepped away from the piano, people approached to congratulate her. Former mockers now offered smiles and words of admiration, expressing their surprise and respect. Teachers praised her skill and commitment, highlighting the growth they had witnessed. Parents expressed delight and pride not only in her music, but in the confidence and poise she displayed on stage. The girl accepted the congratulations with humility, understanding that this was not the end but a continuation of her journey. Each performance, each practice session, and each moment of challenge was a step forward in her growth as a musician and as a person. In the days and weeks that followed, the girl continued to explore new pieces and refine her skill. She experimented with different genres, learning to adapt her style and express herself in new ways. Each performance, no matter how small, became an opportunity to grow and to connect with others through music. She continued to practice diligently, knowing that talent alone was not enough. It was the combination of dedication, courage, and expression that created meaningful music. She embraced each challenge, understanding that the journey of learning and growth was ongoing and rewarding. The impact of her journey extended beyond her own experiences. Other students were inspired by her courage and determination, exploring their own talents and interests. Teachers recognized the value of nurturing each student's potential, providing guidance, support, and encouragement. The girl's story became a source of inspiration, demonstrating that perseverance, passion, and the willingness to face fear could lead to remarkable outcomes. She understood that her journey was not only about her own growth but also about inspiring others to believe in themselves and their abilities. The girl began to dream bigger, imagining performances in larger venues, composing her own music, and sharing her talent with a wider audience. She understood that the path ahead would involve challenges, setbacks, and moments of doubt, but she was prepared to face them with the same courage and determination that had brought her this far. The piano had become more than an instrument. It was a companion, a teacher, and a source of expression and joy. Through it, she had discovered her voice, her confidence, and the limitless possibilities that came from pursuing her passion. Her journey was a testament to the power of perseverance, courage, and self-belief. She had transformed from a girl who was laughed at for reaching toward a piano into a confident musician, capable of captivating an audience and inspiring others. The experiences she had gone through, the doubts, the practice, the small victories, and the performances, had shaped her not only as a musician, but as a person. She had learned that talent alone could not define her. It was her dedication, her heart, and her willingness to face challenges that truly mattered. As she continued to grow, both musically and personally, the girl carried with her the lessons of her journey. She knew that success was not measured solely by applause or recognition, but by the courage to pursue one's passions, the dedication to improve, and the joy of sharing one's talents with others. She embraced each day as an opportunity to learn, to express herself, and to connect with the world through music. The piano had given her more than melodies. It had given her confidence, resilience, and a sense of purpose. Looking ahead, she imagined a future filled with music, creativity, and endless possibilities. She dreamed of performing on larger stages, composing new pieces, and inspiring others through her talent and determination. She understood that the journey would continue, with challenges and triumphs along the way, but she was ready to face it. Each note she played was a reminder of how far she had come and how much potential lay ahead. The girl had transformed her fear into strength, her doubt into determination, and her passion into art. And in that transformation, she had discovered the true power of believing in oneself and the magic of music.